Okay, so it's not just familiar faces at the moment in front of the camera. It's not just me and a familiar friend. I actually have a guest in front of me today, which is very exciting. So before he can introduce himself, my dad and myself, of course, you know, he's very passionate about cars. We read car magazine since I was very young, before I could even read. And one of the names that would always stick out, feature in some way, was Ian McLaren, and that's who I have in front of me today. So wouldn't call it a dream come true. It might sound corny, but it's very cool meeting him in the flesh and also getting to chat to him as the car fanatic that he is. But yeah, Ian, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining. It's quite cool having someone more experienced than myself, also more knowledgeable in cars. That means I can shut up a bit and just listen.
Yeah. Just older, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the grey hairs come also some wisdom, hopefully. But yeah, Ian, thank you for joining. It's nice having you. We're going to have a good chat just regarding his career and his passion for cars and just in general, anything that comes up, really. I mean, a conversation with a car guy can lead anywhere. Hopefully we won't be talking about politics, but yeah, I mean, that's fine. Anyway, Ian, you can just introduce yourself, tell us a bit about where your passion started, your career, and yeah, just a like an overview.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, I started at Car Magazine when I was 22, straight out of college, my first job, or first proper job other than delivering pizzas and things. So I started advertising and I specialized in photography with a view to potentially, hopefully photographing girls, fashion stuff, for obvious reasons. Yeah. And then also like cars, obviously. So, yeah, Car Magazine advertised for an assistant photographer. And I applied for it, and I went through the process, and I got the job as an assistant photographer. And then I think I actually only assisted maybe 2 or 3 shoots, and then ended up taking over. So I was the photographer there, the only photographer for a long time. And then I've always had a passion for writing as well. So, I mean, I didn't get a particularly good mark at English at school, but that was I didn't like the Romeo and Juliet and that kind of stuff, but I loved writing, the comprehension, I think they call it. So composing a story and things like that. So I obviously did some small assignments for Car Magazine, and they obviously saw some potential, and then I learned, you know, they taught me on the job. So I submitted a story, and then it came back full of red pen, and then I submitted another story, and then it came back with hopefully less red pen. Yeah. And so I learned from there. I mean, I still would probably get a lot of red pen on my writing. But anyway, so I grew from there, and then so did photography and writing, and then towards the end, I'm not with Car Magazine anymore, but towards the end, I arguably did probably more writing and less photography. But it's nice to be able to fall back on both disciplines.
Yeah. So was cars always in this? Of course, you told me about photography and photographing girls in fashion or whatever. But where did cars come into the mix? Was it only something that occurred, you know, after something like Car Magazine came along and that became a reality, or was it since young days?
I didn't grow up with a particular fascination on how cars worked. I like the look of cars, I like the design of cars, and I love driving. So that's kind of where my passion for cars started. So, I mean, obviously now through working at Car, I've got a better understanding of the engineering and what goes into it and making it work. But I still love driving. So to sit low in a car, you know, I'm old school, so I like a manual transmission, rear wheel drive. I had the M2 CS the other day. I had Porsche Cayman GT4, that kind of thing. It just really gets me excited.
Awesome drivers cars.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the design of cars, the shape and the look and feel and the tactile nature of them, and I love driving. So that's kind of where the passion for cars grew, and that's where it is at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it gets easier if you surround yourself with people who's also so passionate about cars.
Absolutely. So we were talking before about the community and the sense of community, and once you start talking to enthusiasts and, you know, everyone's on the same page and everybody wants to help out, and you know, from a photography point of view, the best light is early morning or evening, but first prize is before sunrise. And you know, I found it's always that awkward conversation of asking a guy to come, you know, before sunrise, could you be there, would you mind, and as soon as people realize that, you know, the relevance of it, and everyone's going to get together and talk cars and drive cars, then everyone's there, and it's cool. It's a very cool community to be in, and long may it last.
Yeah, my short lifespan with cars also includes some gatherings with friends of mine's dads who own cool Porsches and Ferraris or whatever, and then early morning, like in the summer times, like 5 o'clock, we'll gather somewhere in Somerset West or Strand, and then head off Clarence Drive. Go for that. Stop at what's the place, Royals, come back, and that's, I mean, stupid and basically absurd for anyone waking up on a Sunday morning going for those kind of drives so early, like just to go for a drive. But I mean, if you don't have the passion, that's
it's
something different.
It's just cool. It's just and there's something, maybe it's I don't know if it's a boy thing or not, but there's just something about, even when we used to ride our BMXs around the neighborhood as kids, there's something like a pack of wolves mentality, almost and I can see the I live next to the N2, and I can hear the guys on a Sunday morning coming past the Honda Club and the BMW Club.
Yeah.
You can definitely hear the BMW Club because they do donuts at the Shell garage. But I mean, there's just it might be antisocial behavior in some instances, but there's a camaraderie to it. That's probably that's a good word.
Yeah, it's nice for me living at Ray's, hearing basically every Saturday or Sunday morning, like, okay, first the biker crew, and then usually like the supercar club going up Elshoogte Pass, going to Franshoek. And then some Sundays I'll just be like, okay, screw it, go through the Franshoek, just see what's clapping. It's awesome to see the gatherings. And now and then, but because there's like so many niche clubs, like the 370 or the 350Z club, or like the Morris Minor Club. I mean, there's so many clubs, but it doesn't matter, to be honest. You can make a HP Pencil Club if you really want to. It's all about the gathering in that sense, which is very cool. Do you have any specific like memories of gatherings of car people which stand out for you past couple of whenever?
I mean, as a journalist, I got no money. So I get to drive around in test cars and it looks like I've got money. But
it looks very cool.
So my goal, and there's a bigger reason to it, my goal is to get something of my own that I can keep in the garage.
Of course.
That I can, my son's 4. So by the time he's driving, I don't know whether cars are even going to...
what are cars going to be?
They're going to be electric, or what's going to happen. Maybe they're flying, but... I mean, I'm a fan of GTI, so I'd love a Mark 1 GTI.
Brilliant.
On a relatively smaller scale, otherwise a Porsche or something like that. So in terms of car gatherings, it's still a goal to get something of my own that I can take to one of the gatherings. It's a bit frowned upon when you pull in there with a test car. They get excited, but I mean, it's not yours. You're not quite in the circle of trust. I had a funny story. I photographed the press release for the current Honda Civic Type R, or the one that's out now. And so I had the car first in Cape Town. Obviously, they used the pictures for the launch of the car. So we did an early morning shoot again. We did it in down Salaris Pass. And we came down the pass, and then we were going to get a coffee. And we turned left towards Somerset Mall. And we literally turned left into the Honda club's gathering. All these Civics, Type Rs, and all that gathering. And you could see them one by one realizing what the car was. It was the brand new one, the first one probably in the country. And you said, okay, do I slow down here? Do I speed up?
Do you stop, or what do you do?
Smile and wave, or just get out of here? But so in terms of gatherings, one day I'll take my own car there. First prize 911, second prize GTI. We'll see.
Apparently, some clubs also have their own sort of personality. Like your Porsche club or your Ferrari clubs are like your older, more sophisticated gentlemen, your very rich folk, your Porsches, your enthusiasts.
I would like to think that if you got a selection of each club together, there would be a common interest. And even if maybe the Ferrari guys are a little bit more highbrow, and they would maybe frown upon the big exhaust on the back of a Civic Type R. If you got the conversation going, they would have something in common, inevitably.
Yeah, of course. So you do probably have your own cars also?
I don't actually own a car. I
really?
haven't owned a car for a while, fortunately.
Wow.
So at Car Magazine we had long-term cars, so we kept them for a year at a time and reviewed them. So the last car I owned was a little City Golf 1.4, which I wish I'd kept, actually. And then it just didn't make sense to keep it. I just wasn't driving it enough. It was parked. So, for the time being, I still get test cars, thankfully. My wife's got a Polo, so we use that if we needs be. But, yeah, again, I don't have money to buy cars.
Yeah, of
so
course.
For the time being, it's cool if I can get cars.
I think that's the cool thing of journalism. Like, you sort of have this image like, yeah, I'm driving cool cars, whatever, but like, don't ask me to take you out for a 5-star dinner. Like,
Yeah. I mean, they're not always cool cars. Some of them are less appealing in terms of putting the wife and kids in.
it's Suzuki Espressos of the like, you know.
Yeah, the Espresso is it's still quirky, but there's some Chinese cars that I wouldn't put my kids into. But yeah, so for the time being, I don't own a car. It would be an interesting exercise if and when I buy a car, because you would think I know exactly what to buy, and I actually do have an idea what I would buy. But then my wife comes with her preconceptions and things of what she would like to drive. So you would think a motoring journalist would be a no-brainer in terms of knowing what to buy.
Yeah.
And also in terms of a budget, but it would be an interesting exercise.
So last week I spoke to a friend of mine who, well, I called the podcast The Conversation with a Non-Car Guy.
Yeah.
So he knows nothing about cars,
Yeah.
nothing. And I sort of wanted to gauge where he's at, like, what does he know about cars? What is cars in his eyes? And I sort of asked the question, you know, let's say you have a family one day, okay? You have to decide what car you're going to buy for your family. And what are you looking at? And he just, like, had no idea, but eventually came to something, came to the conclusion to buy something safe, similar to the Volvo or whatever.
Yeah.
But what are you looking at when you actually buy a family car?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, if it came down to the nuts and bolts and you wanted to buy the best value car that was relatively safe, had good resale, and got from A to B, everyone would be driving a white Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, no,
and
that's
for
true.
good reason.
Yeah.
And it's the same reason why the Toyota Camry did so well back in the day. So it had space, it got you from A to B. It was dull as dish soap, but you know, if you were feeling bold, you put a wing on the back of it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Yeah, that's the simple answer. Then you get to the fact that someone like my wife wants to sit higher, so the SUV kind of craze, the perception that it's safer and you can see further and things like that. So then the Corolla goes out the window. So then something like a T-Cross comes in, which she really likes because she drives a Polo now, so she would love to upgrade to a T-Cross. So there's an appeal in that, but then that's a bit smaller in terms of having kids.
Yeah.
So you need a bigger boot. So then, you know what I mean? There's so many boxes to tick.
Yeah.
If you had to tick sensible boxes, a white Toyota Corolla, because it's easy to repair and it's better.
Also
resale.
have a big boot.
Yeah, and it's got a big boot. And it's comfortable and it does everything that it should do. And then you start adding sentimental reasons sentiment to it, and then emotional appeal, because you still want to feel like you spent.
And
like
then the Corolla goes out the window.
The Corolla goes out the window, unfortunately. So, that's the reason magazines like Car Magazine and people like myself have a job, because hopefully
people need advice.
You can give advice based on your needs, requirements, and emotional attachment to a car.
Yeah. So something about journalism that always, motor journalism specifically, driving all these test cars. The one thing is, like, you drive the most amazing cars and it's awesome, but then in my mind, you probably do get tired of driving all these cool cars, or you get tired of driving one for too long, let's say a few months, and then you just need to swap. Is that a reality? Like, is that something you actually experienced, like getting too tired too quickly?
No,
for a cars?
I mean, to this day, I still love driving. It was interesting when you had a car for a year, a long-term car. So some of them got to a point where, you would, okay, I've had enough. Not had enough, but I've experienced everything I can experience with this car, and I know where it stands in my list of wants one day.
Yeah.
So, again, the nice thing about driving all the cars is you have a frame of reference. So if one day you were going to spend your money, I know there's the list of cars, and some of them are at the bottom.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. No, I don't think I ever got tired of driving a car. Maybe like in life, there's always a car that you would prefer to be driving. The old saying is, there's always a bigger fish. So I remember the day we got the Audi TT, the first gen Audi TT, and we had the first one in Cape Town. Car Magazine had the first one in Cape Town, and I had it for a weekend.
Yeah.
And I pulled up next to a guy, and he had his beautiful girlfriend next to him, and they were driving an MX-5 Mazda. she was doing everything in her power not to. It wasn't because of me to look and stare, and you could see the driver of the MX-5 was going. He was hating life and hating me probably. And I remember thinking, just like the guy probably saved, and it's probably his own money, and he's got an MX-5, and nothing wrong with the MX-5, but at that moment, the brand new Audi TT, a black one with the baseball glove mitt interior. That's when I realized, there's always a bigger fish.
No, there's always something better. Something obscene that I've seen the past couple of months. Now, in university, usually a typical university car would be like a Polo. Or the other ETRs is also gaining some fame. Some drive Yaris's. Some drive Golfs even, So not the most amazing car, usually just something reliable, something safe. But now, there are some university kids, or rather the parents, who decide it's a good idea to buy them a GLE 63 or a Golf R or M2. And I ask myself, okay, cool, what's next for you?
Because the problem with that is, where do they go to from there?
At some point, well, I guess somewhere in the next 10 years, they'll have to support themselves. They have to get a job, buy their own car. And I guess my and my friends, the way we see it is, you get a car now. Let's say your parents buy a Polo. You'd like to keep that Polo for at least the next, 8 to 10 years, because you don't want to buy a good, another car. And also, it's fine. It's a Polo. It's a reliable car, not too expensive to maintain. But now you get an M2. Surely in your mind, you're not like your long-term car, forever car, because you're used to sort of that level.
Yeah.
So what's next?
You need to be able to aspire to something too, I think. Yeah. The guy with a Polo generally aspires to a GTI or a Golf.
Of course.
So if you start on an M2, you're setting the bar fairly high. I hope you can sustain it.
Yeah. So. I think with the Polo also, you sort of get used to more... How do you say it? Like a very simple way of driving. Like you don't have a lot of power, manual gearbox.
The basics.
Yeah, and that's also needed. I can't remember who I spoke to about it, but like, let's say I climb in a Porsche now. Like I can't exert 40% of that car's power because I'll, be in my pants. I'm so scared because I don't have that experience.
Yeah, you build up to it.
But you sort of, get the max out of what you have now, even if you have an MX-5. You can get a lot out of an MX-5, actually.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you go up from there. Otherwise, you just don't get used to the next level. Otherwise, you just don't, I guess, build skill also.
Yeah, you need to aspire as well.
Yeah. So what was your first car that you had?
That I owned?
Was it the City Golf?
I used to deliver pizzas and Nando's chicken.
Nando's?
In an Apache. Austin Apache. It was lent to me.
No idea what that is.
Basically like a Mini with a boot.
Okay.
And then I had a Mazda 323, which I delivered a lot of pizzas in. And
it's a big boot, actually.
Yeah, it was a lekker thing.
It's a lot of pizzas.
And it was reliable, and I drove it badly, but it never let me down. And then they stole that from Car Magazine's car park 2 weeks after I started at Car Magazine. They stole my Mazda.
And that was your car?
It was my car, and I laughed. Well, I didn't laugh, but... it was on fumes in terms of fuel. There was nothing left. I literally parked it with fumes. So I know for a fact they went to the petrol station straight after they stole it. And then the next place they went to was a pizza place because that car had so many... no one could get into my car without smelling pizza. It was into the cloth.
It was in the material.
So I know they got that. So I had a Mazda 323, which was good to me. So that was the first car I owned.
Yeah. A friend, you probably also had some road trips or some crazy experiences with that car since it was your first one.
Yeah, we went up to George. We went up to Hermanus and Neisner for December holidays, and we drove it badly, and I had to sleep in it a few times, and very cool.
That sounds like typical.
Yeah.
And then from there on, it was basically just test cars.
Yeah, so then I had a City Golf, I had an 1800 Sport, not the CTI, which I really wanted. And then another City Golf, and then that's the last car I owned. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of test drives, what has been your most memorable test drives you can remember in your career?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I mean, we've been incredibly lucky. I drove... I went on the international launch of the Porsche Carrera GT in Berlin.
That's amazing.
Which was obviously bucket list stuff to this day. So when we arrived there, we had Walter Roll there, and he drove us around, and I did 322 k's an hour on a runway in Berlin with him driving. So a BMW M2 around Laguna Seca was pretty cool.
Damn, that's also quite cool.
Yeah, and then a bit slower, but still fun. I drove those Arctic trucks, Hiluxes in Iceland.
Yeah, the same ones that they drove on Top Gear.
Top Gear ones, yeah. So we drove onto a glacier in Iceland with those big AT44s, I think the ones with the big tires are. So that was a very cool trip. That's one of the best trips I did.
And was it really like as capable as you thought it would be?
Yeah, they were rubbish on road because there's so much rubber. So as soon as you went over 80 k's an hour, they were wobbling all over the place.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not what they're designed for. But in terms on the snow, they were incredible.
Yeah.
And then, more recently, I drove the McLaren Senna around Estoril in Portugal, which was cool.
Was that at the launch?
Yeah.
What was your initial thoughts of the Senna and like the looks and what the car represented?
I haven't changed my mind. I still don't think it's a great looking car. I know why it looks the way it does in terms of function and things like that. And having driven it flat out, I appreciate the downforce and and everything around it. I still don't think it's a great looking car. I think it's clumsy. There's too many funny lines and awkward lines and things like that. So
I do have a question about the Senna also. One thing I'm always interested about is how capable supercars are these days.
Yeah.
And how much can like a normal person, like a non-racing driver, actually get out of that car? Like a Senna. It's not a GT3 car. Yeah. It's not a racing car. It was proven. But it's like, almost to the extreme edges of what a road car can do for now, So how do you,
I wouldn't say it's not a race car. I mean, it's pretty much ready to race. I mean, you could take it on a track. I mean, so that launch was incredible because we had sighting laps of the track in a 720S, McLaren 720S.
Yeah, which is not a slow car.
And that's one of the fastest cars I've ever driven.
Yeah.
So you came in from that, and then you have an instructor in the passenger seat, so he's guiding you through. You've got comms in your helmet, and he's telling you where to brake and things like that. So that was interesting because that's more a road-based car.
Yeah.
And then the biggest difference in a Senna for me, apart from it was louder, so the sound deadening is less. So you can hear the stones hitting the undercarriage and things. Is the brakes and the tires. So I think it had semi-slick tires on, obviously, and the brakes. So you come down the back straight of Estoril, and then your brain's telling you to brake, and he's saying wait, and you flat, wait, brake, and then you stand on the brakes, and
it just stops.
Yeah, you've got you're just sucked into your harness, and then it stops, and then you kind of look up, and it's ready to turn in, kind of stuff. So, in terms of driving it, so if you took a Senna around Franschhoek Pass or Helshoogte, I think you would be quick because it's powerful and it's light. I don't know that a better driver in a let's think, in a 911, in a GT3, for example, wouldn't catch you and potentially pass you.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I don't know if a guy in a 911 turbo, because it's all-wheel drive and he's more confident, wouldn't then pass the guy in the GT3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So look, at the end of the day, the better driver will be quickest, but a novice, if you put a driver on the same skill level in all those cars, he would be arguably quicker in the all-wheel drive car that's more predictable, and things like that. So it takes a bit more effort and skill, suppose, to drive a Senna or even a GT3 up to the limit and then beyond the limit.
Yeah.
So
because I think one thing about supercars over the years, it's of course gotten more technological and safe and so, but also there's a lot more driver aids to help the driver.
Yeah, like a Senna's got driver aids, and then they say cheers. So I wouldn't like to get it wrong in a Senna, because I think you would struggle to get it back.
Yeah, you'd probably bend it. Yeah,
I had a notebook comment in a car magazine. We had the C43 Mercedes-Benz AMG or Mercedes-AMG C43.
Yes, yeah.
And I reckon
6-cylinder.
Yeah, I reckon a novice driver would be arguably quicker around a Franschhoek Pass, for example, in that car than the C63S.
That's interesting.
Because it's less intimidating to drive. There's bigger margin for error, and you could sit and you can concentrate on your driving and your lines and things like that. Whereas a C63S,
all power, you're
concentrating on your throttle inputs. So if you're too quick on the throttle, it's going to go sideways, and there's a lot more going on, and it's a more visceral experience. But if you're talking about A to B, the C43 gives you a bit more confidence and a bit more leeway and a bit more room for forgiveness. So yeah, so maybe that's a better way of putting it. So yeah.
Also, a lot of cars, take sportier supercars, you know, they don't. 90% of the time, they're not driven full out, flat out, mountain pass driving, track driving. Also,
yeah. So I mean, another point of reference is superbikes. So if you went on a superbikes these days, at what point are you? You know what I mean? So look, at the end of the day, I think the cool thing about cars is you can find a car that matches your skill level, a car and a road, and you could come back and you could feel unbelievable. And you've driven a Mini Cooper S.
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah.
And like you go home and you've had a good day out. Whereas another guy might have that thrill in a GT3 or the Senna or something like that. So there's always a car to match your skill level. There's always a road to match your skill level, which is the cool thing about cars.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you driven any kind of GT3 or the newer ones, especially?
The 911 GT3.
Yeah.
That's my favorite car.
I wanted to ask that because for me, I'm a Porsche fanatic.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've driven all the GT3s.
So from 996
from 996
upwards.
I went on the international launch of 996 GT3 with Walter Roll again.
Yeah.
997 GT3, I was an international launch, and the second gen 997s. I've driven all of them. They're phenomenal. So
and the RS models probably.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
The one I would have is a GT3 Touring, and I would.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that's all I need. I don't especially need the wing on the back.
Yeah.
For me, and I would take the manual. So I've driven all of them, and that's pretty much all the car I would need.
Yeah.
If I could afford it one day.
Does the GT3 Touring and the normal GT3 like 991.2, is it really like just the wingless GT3, or is there actually a bit more difference?
You put me on the spot. I think the suspension is a little bit more forgiving in the Touring, just so that it's more, slightly more road biased.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's certainly the same performance. Same. It's got the wide rear tracks, the wide body. Yeah, no, it's for me. That's the best car in the world.
Now I remember driving. I was driving somewhere in town, and I saw a 911 coming. Well, you initially first see the lights. It's very recognizable. You saw it coming, and I was like, this one looks a bit different, but I don't see a wing or anything. It's just normal 911 shape. And then I look at the front, and I see, no, that's the GT grill. Drove past, look at the back, twin pipes in the middle, GT3 Touring. But of course, your common car guy, it's a 911. It's a Porsche.
What color was it?
I think it was a yellow one. Yeah. And then also, not long after that, I saw the Speedster in Miami Blue or Scott. Yeah,
I'm getting the Speedster now next month to drive.
I think that must be the most unbelievable experience in terms of sound.
I drove that. It was one of my last launches at Car Magazine. I drove came in the 718 GT4.
Yes.
And the Speedster in Scotland. So I drove around Knockhill in Scotland with the GT4.
Yes.
And then they gave us a Speedster to go out into the countryside. And I was born there. So I was born in Scotland. So it was a special experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So incredible trip to Scotland. At the end of the day, a lot of people ask me, and it's interesting. A lot of kids as well ask if I've driven Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and they want you to take them in this car and this car. And it's a funny thing about Porsches is they arguably don't get the same emotional juices flowing as a scarlet red Ferrari and,
of course,
and a Raging Bull. But actually, they make the best cars. There's nothing that they build, even if you don't like the styling of something. The first Panamera, for example. Even if you don't like the styling, there's nothing that they build that isn't solidly engineered. Fast, and it's going to keep its resale. They make good cars. I'm a big Porsche fan. Well, I appreciate. Porsche.
I think Porsche and Ferrari are two brands that are very known for the good resale value. Majority of the cars, of course, but there's quite a big difference where Porsche. It feels like they have this continuity. If you had to climb into a 996. GT3 now and the newest one, there's still some sort of
there's family familiarity. So it's an interesting thing about Ferrari is that they've built up this mystique around the brand, which was annoying or frustrating for a journalist in this country because they didn't hand out test cars and they don't want you to road test their cars. And if you get a car, you can only drive it for so many kilometers and things. But actually, rightly or wrongly, it builds up this mystique about, oh, I wonder what this car is, and I wonder if it is actually special that you can't drive it for. I mean, why can't you
so
road test it and
exclusive.
things like that? So I do appreciate what Ferrari's done, and you have to appreciate how they've built that brand up. So some of the cars are not particularly good, like a California.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been as disappointed in a driving experience.
Have you driven the Portofino?
No, I drove the F12, the Berlinetta. That was incredible. Obviously, the V12 and the 488. So the smaller stuff is really good, and it continues to be really good. So hats off to them. They haven't dipped in their quality. They arguably could, and they would still be as popular. The kids would still lose their mind about a red
Still
Ferrari.
a Ferrari.
But yeah, I mean, there's a mystique about Ferrari that you have to take your hat off to them.
Yeah.
So and then the Lamborghinis. The best thing to happen to Lamborghini was the Audi ownership, because now they're actually comfortable and usable to drive, but they're still incredible experiences.
I mean, just look at the Huracan, what that did for Lamborghini.
Yeah. No, that's a great car to drive, and arguably the Urus, also probably unnecessary in the greater scheme of things.
Have you driven the Urus?
Yeah, I have.
And how was that?
No, it's fantastic. I don't know that it's that much better. I mean, I haven't driven the RS Q8 yet. I don't know how much better the Urus will be, but it certainly looks the part, sounds the part.
Yeah.
You have to appreciate, in fact, all the brands, what they've done with SUVs. I mean, those things, 2 tons, 2.5 tons. You have to appreciate what they
look at what Aston did with the DBX, I think.
Yeah, I haven't driven DBX. I don't particularly want to.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
Those kind of things leave me cold. But like again, we talk about Porsche again, but Cayennes, BMW X5s, GLEs, GLE 63. It's incredible. That thing is 2.5 tons with 7 seats in it, and it does 0 to 100 in under 5 seconds. It's amazing how the motoring world, in terms of manufacturers, adapts and
shift.
It shifts continuously, and maybe it's a discussion for another time. But electric, I mean, it's for a car enthusiast. I'm not excited at all about electrification and that, but it's incredible how our motoring industry has gone. Okay, well, there's big pressure on emissions, and there's big pressure on this and fossil fuels, so we have to go electric. And boom, they're going electric.
Yeah.
And like a Tesla, what they've done, they've opened the door, and now the Germans are going to come and kick the door open, by all accounts. But it's incredible how the motoring industry is relatively flexible, and it moves and it goes, and they go. Every one of those motoring manufacturers is at least 2 years ahead of legislation in terms of where they're supposed to be for emissions.
Yeah.
They just get on with it and do it.
I think what's awesome, like especially the Germans, take the GLB, which is quite a new car, maybe not even a year old, and now suddenly they made an electric version, the EQ, ELB, something like that. Anyway, they basically took the base of that car, made it electric. Now something like the EQS comes out, direct competitor to what you would call an electric S-Class. It's actually unbelievable. Top Gear had the electric awards now. There's so many cars to choose from. Not here, of course. You don't see any of them here. But of course, a lot of brands like Jag, like Audi, like Volkswagen are saying 2030, okay, because of like whatever's happened in the UK, 2030 all electric. And I'm asking a question, what does that mean for us, or even the rest of the underdeveloped world?
Well, it's got big implications for us. We simply have to catch up. You can't be left behind, because it's fine if they still have petrol cars here for another 20 years, but what happens to industry? So Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Nissan, they all build for export here.
Yeah.
What happens when your market doesn't want
your cars
a combustion engine anymore? You need electric. So there's big pressure. I mean, there's big pressure. I mean, the government. It's up to government as well to get involved. So but that's a discussion for another time. But I've driven I-Paces, and I'm driving Taycan. I'm looking forward to it. But
I think that should be awesome.
Yeah, but I'm old school. If it was between a Taycan that did 0 to 100 in 3 seconds and a GT3 that did 0 to 100 in 5 seconds, I would have the GT3.
Yes, without a doubt. But I think the Taycan it's sort of the first, if Porsche decides to build an electric car, that means things are going to move forward. And also that sort of sets the benchmark for what a fun electric car should be. But then again,
well, I'll let you know after I drive it. I don't know how
Yeah.
much fun it'll be.
Yeah.
My concern is that all electric cars are going to end up the same. So they'll all have the same battery underneath. They'll be built in the same factory.
Modular,
So
it's easy.
they'll charge the same. They'll all do 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. They will, you know what I mean? They'll do 500
mile,
Ks.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. So where as a motoring journalist or where as a consumer do you find the differentiation between the two, between the Tesla and the Porsche?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a bit concerning as a motoring enthusiast where things are going, because I don't gather they're going to be able to engineer that much difference in terms of all it is suspension and steering, really.
Yeah, I see. Especially in Europe, there's a lot of small city cars like the Peugeot electric car or whatever, the Honda Jazz E, the Mini Cooper E. There's a lot of those small city compact cars, and it's not like your supercars and whatever, which is very exciting to look at. So when you do your more consumer or journalistic tests on those cars, like what do you even say? Oh, the interior looks nice.
Well, that's all you're going to talk about is interior and luggage
exterior
space.
And like
packaging. Yeah.
At the moment, range is sort of variable, but it's still very much the same.
But range won't be dependent on a manufacturer. That'll be dependent on what's on the battery.
Yeah. So, but I mean, just sort of stating the fact there's not a lot to say, actually.
No, it's concerning.
Yeah. I mean,
even Formula E is boring. I mean, it's
apparently there's a Formula E coming to Greenpoint in Cape Town.
So I heard that I would think someone's still going to have to put a lot of money into surfacing a track.
Yeah.
And if I looked at the figures, when there was every few years, there's a rumor that Formula One's coming to Greenpoint.
Yeah.
And then they actually add up and they think, well, who's going to pay for it?
It's not
So I think it would be great in terms of a spectacle to have a race, especially around that scenery. I don't know who's going to pay to. I mean, there's safety. There's who's going to resurface. You can't be jumping the speed bumps outside the waterfront.
No.
Anyway.
So I think that would be quite cool, seeing some sort of motorsport. I think there is a GT3 challenge or GT3 Cup coming to South Africa, actually, like a racing series, which would be very cool. And that's petrol cars, so that's what also makes it exciting. But I mean, we haven't been.
I think South Africa's biggest chance of international motorsport, other than the endurance racing that they're doing, the GT3s, is probably motorbikes. I gather Kyle Army is still a little bit away in terms of infrastructure to host a Formula One, but I think MotoGP or superbikes would probably come before that, which is cool. Yeah. I'm a big MotoGP fan.
Are you, okay, so I just wanted to ask, are you interested in motorsport in any way?
Yeah, I can't be bothered with Formula One, to be honest with you. My surname is McLaren, so I grew up as a McLaren fan for obvious reasons.
Oh, obviously.
And I love what guys like Lando Norris and Ricciardo are doing for the sport in terms of personality, bringing personality and stuff. I can't watch a full Formula One race. To me, to wait for 60 laps for something to happen.
Yeah.
And then, and Formula One for me is only exciting when there's outside elements.
Yeah.
If there's rain or there's a big crash, there's a safety car, then it's exciting. MotoGP, there's every one of the guys on that grid could have a good day.
Yeah.
There's all the manufacturers. Any one of those manufacturers could win. Even Aprilia's up there now. The riders have personalities.
Yeah.
So they get off the bike and they congratulate each other. Or they all got... And they all love what they're doing. So, for me, for the last few years now, I found MotoGP 20 times more exciting than Formula One.
Formula One this year, I think, especially gained a lot of traction, but mainly because of Drive to Survive on Netflix.
Absolutely. So, but
that's not even to do with the cars, really.
But anyway, that's also a discussion for another time. But I don't. There's too many rules and regulations, and even the stupid track limit stuff that they're going on about now. I mean, honestly, you just stay on the track, and then you won't lose your lap. And then who decides which track limit is? And then the Russian kid running around at the back that's paid for his seat. No, you wouldn't find that in MotoGP. Surely every guy on that grid can ride a bike.
Yeah. So I'm also interested to hear. At the moment, you're driving the M440i.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that car. How is the experience? How's the new look?
I don't love the new look. I don't love the new styling, but I can appreciate that BMW wanted to take a bit of a risk with the 4 Series and differentiate it from the 3. So, they're talking to a buyer, and if you don't like it, don't buy it. And if you do like it, they like. So I take my hat off to them for building in a bit of personality and character into the car.
Yeah.
So I don't personally like the grille. It's growing on me, but more slowly than it should be. In terms of a car, it's a really cool car to drive. I love sitting. You can sit low in it. You can sit in lovely engine, obviously, and this is the X-Drive, which I don't think you need in our market, but it is what it is. So I had the M4 last week, which is obviously that much a step up in terms of its everything.
Yeah.
And probably this is the one you would buy to live with, and it's fast enough, and you'd still go over hell's work or pass very quickly.
I wonder how this compares to the normal M4 because it's X-Drive also.
Yeah, so I like the M4, the rear wheel drive, so it's a bit more playful, and you can chuck it in a bit, and you can scare your wife if the tires are cold and things like that. Funny enough, this gearbox, I like this gearbox better. So the M4's got it's gone back to 8-speed auto.
Yeah.
So the gear shifts aren't as jarring or as kind of noticeable.
Yeah.
Which for everyday driving is cool and
nice.
everything, and makes it more pretty. But I actually like the gearbox when it knocked through.
Sort
the
of tells
clutch.
you, hey, you're driving the car.
Yeah. So like we spoke about it when I got you. I would have the M3 over the M4. I think from practicality point of view, and I think the difference between the two as well is the M3 now is wider at the back, so they've actually widened the wheel arches.
Yes.
Even if so it looks more purposeful on the road, and plus you've got the back doors, and you lose nothing in terms of performance. Yeah. So I would get M3 over M4, and then as the everyday. For a long time now, the one below the M4 and the M3, like a 330i and things like that, has been
the
probably the
M40.
Car to get.
Yes, hell.
So
I think it's similar with the 5 Series, like
those cars
M550.
are so good. 550 is so good.
I mean,
I think you don't have the bragging rights, I suppose it is.
Yeah, but I mean that's depending on what you want to achieve and your age, I guess.
Yeah.
But one thing that in terms of pet peeves, and sort of cars have to do with emissions regulations, but like pumping sound through the speakers, and I think BMW is they are in the lead when it comes to doing that. Is that also something that irritates you a lot? Or as a car enthusiast?
The idea of it irritates me from an enthusiast point of view, but actually on the road, it doesn't irk me. I wouldn't not buy a car because it did that. I understand why they do it. It's the same as the cars that arrive here with particulate filters in it.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not kind of the manufacturer's fault. They're making the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
So the idea of it irritates me, but while I'm driving, it doesn't.
Is it as what do you call it? Like, can you really hear it? Is it so discernible?
There's guys on YouTube that have found the fuse for that resonator.
Yeah.
I think it was on the M5 launch, one of the launches. On the launch they found the fuse, so they revved it with thing, and then they pulled the fuse out and they revved it without it, and it sounded horrendous without it. But at the same time, the average owner is not going to do that.
Yeah,
and also the average M5 owner, does he care?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
So and worst case, you put an acropovic pipe in the back, and you wake up the neighbors when you leave in the morning. So unfortunately, the motoring manufacturers are at the mercy of legislation.
Yeah.
And they have been for a long time. So, they're making the best of a bad situation. And again, that's why I would love something old school in my garage, just to keep there for when my son's of age. Another example was that Mustang Bullet.
Yes.
I would love one of those. Like, it's not a great car to
sound
drive,
unbelievable.
but it sounds good, and the manual gearbox and the everything about that car was great.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. Yeah, I'd love to get something like that in my driveway, or again Mark 1 GTI. I would love. Just to remember what cars used to be like in terms of an experience.
So your dream garage, you said Mark 1 GTI, of course.
Yeah, I've got an attachment to Mark 1 GTI. I would love one of those. I would have a 997 GT3.
GT3 RS? No,
GT3.
Just normal GT3. Because, of course, the 997 includes the 4 liter.
Yeah.
Like the final Mesga.
Just the 997 GT3.
Just the 993.
How much money have I got?
Well, dream garage.
Well, you'd have to throw a McLaren F1 in there.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Why not?
It's cool to have a car with your name on it. Yeah, it's hard. In terms of something to drive around in.
Like your daily. What would you love as a daily? RS6, M3.
Yeah, I think
Rolls Royce.
Either RS4 or RS6, and maybe RS4 would be sufficient.
I saw a new RS4 in white the other day in town. Now, your average guy wouldn't really notice, but we were walking from the back or from the rear, and it had this massive rear end.
Yeah.
Like, it is so wide. I didn't realize it was actually so big as it is in pictures.
Yeah.
And I was stunned, and I was like, that's unbelievable. Because it's white, so your average guy wouldn't know what kind of car this is, but
I think I would do. So I would be torn between an RS6 and an RS4, but I think where I'm at right now, I would be happy with the RS4, although RS6 is by all accounts incredible. So I love a good wagon. I love the shape of them.
Definitely.
That would be in there. Maybe a Cayman GT4.
The newest one or the previous?
The newer one. I've got to get the manual.
Yeah. Because apparently there's some talk about the manual being the gear ratios being too long. Like you basically stay in second and
that
you're
was
illegal.
talk of the town on the launch. So when I had the car, I took it out on Sunday early morning sunrise out to Clarence Drive, and kind of it's disappointing in the way that you go in a manual car and you think, I'm going to shift and it's going to be so visceral and it's going to be so cool. But then you realize the car, I think, did 160 in theory. In second. In second. So actually, you just leave it in second.
That's unbelievable.
Third, and it's got so much pull. So actually, then you don't worry about the gear shifts on that road. And
so you just drive.
And you just drive. So and you're never going to get to the top of third. Or third gear. So I can understand why the guys were complaining or moaning about it, but at the same time, I can also see the advantage of the long gearing. Yeah. So I know there's a PDK one coming now, and I was there when cars started going from manual, and there was only going to be auto boxes and things like that. And to be honest, the auto boxes have got so good. Yeah. There's kind of there's an emotional attachment to a manual shift, but actually, you may as well just shift on the pedals.
Also, looking at in Porsches in general, the PDK boxes, which are insane, probably the best box out there. I like the shifter in the middle, where you can sort of mid-turn, hit it forward or pull it back for gear up, which is also quite
that's one of the coolest things about the new GT3.
Yes.
So they've gone back to they
don't have the shaver anymore.
Yeah. I don't love the little USB stick.
Yeah.
Again, there's no reason I don't like it, but it's just, for me, I prefer that. That was part of that because you drove like that, and it's such a lekker feel, and you almost feel like a touring car driver. Yeah. That just
makes you feel sort of racing car driver. Okay, so I have 5 quick questions for you. Yeah. Okay, so you sort of just have to gooi. Yeah. All right. First one, most hated car.
I don't love a Cherry QQ.
Oh, hey, valid. Okay, manual, automatic.
Manual.
SUV or estate?
Estate.
Dream car, like ultimate dream car.
GT3 Touring.
And how does your favorite road trip look?
To be honest with you, we've got so many cool roads around here. Up and over the Franschhoek Pass, left at the bridge, go to the Villiersdorp, then turn right. You come out back at the N2. Yeah. Yeah, that's an incredible. I mean, there's guys that would come from all over the world to drive that. Yeah. Otherwise, I would go back to Scotland. So the Scotland is incredible.
North Coast 500.
Yeah, lovely roads, and also especially in something like a Spider, you put the roof down, you put the heaters on your hands, and you put the seat warmers on if you're lucky, and then you can just feel the crisp air going over your hair. Yeah. I drove the McLaren 675 LT also in Scotland. With
the coupe or the
the Spider. Oh, so then you just feel the crispness of the.
But it's still warm. Yeah,
unbelievable. Yeah. Also, I'm supposed to give you one answer, but
no, please go on.
What's it? Pacific Coast Highway in the US.
Oh yes, PCH. Yeah.
So, but I mean, obviously quite speed limited and stuff. But I mean, spectacular.
That you have to take. I feel there you have to take something like a Rolls Royce Dawn or like a Because you aren't necessarily going to go McLaren 675,
no,
spirited
more
driving.
cruising, yeah.
It's something more of an experience.
Yeah.
So what are you taking then?
Yeah.
So I think it's more towards Rolls-Royce, maybe Bentley Continental GT,
Yeah,
Cab.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, those cars are unbelievable, actually. I think if you had to ask me, I had to choose between Rolls-Royce, Dawn, and like a Bentley Continental, or Ghost or whatever. I'd definitely go Bentley. It's luxury enough, but I think Bentley just slams out of the park with the Continental.
Yeah, the Rolls-Royce is quite a thing, though. Hey?
Yeah, I think, for me, I don't have any reference point, so it's something
the biggest compliment you can tell a Rolls-Royce is when you drive one, even the modern ones, they tell you to drive it with your thumb and two fingers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel natural because it's such a big car, but yet it actually just
wafts along.
And the thick carpets and it's.
Have you driven the new Ghost or Phantom? Or
No. I think one of the last Rolls Royce I had was it's probably the old Ghost. I haven't driven.
But Cullen. I mean that also.
No, they're incredible experiences, and again, like they build cars like a Cullen, and you and I look at it and go, what? But they sell thousands of them in the Middle East,
and they'll continue to sell.
And probably it's the most profitable car they make.
Yeah.
So like what Cayenne did for Porsche, you know what I mean? So it's necessary evil, but it's again, they do it properly.
It's crazy how the SUV market just exploded, and then crossovers, and then I wonder, it's probably just about setting higher, feeling safe, being sort of king of the road. Maybe it's a more of a feeling kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's more perceived in terms of safety. I don't think they're necessarily safer. In fact, they're probably not. But I can see why people want to sit taller to see high, see over cars in front. But then also when you write these tests, like a review of a T-Cross or T-Rock, and you actually realize they've raised the ground clearance by 15-20 mil.
Yeah.
This is nothing.
Yeah.
So actually you're sitting...
It's a polo cross.
You're sitting basically on an old phone book. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, then obviously you get X5s and Q7s and things like that, which is more raised. But yeah, I had a double cab on the weekend. I had the V6 Amarok, the 190 kilowatt. And then you sit tall, and then you sit command. What do they call it? Command driving position.
Yeah. So I think that is the nice thing about SUV sitting higher. A friend of mine has a Legend 40, and I often drive that around. Actually, he's my roommate in race, but there, for all the perks, there's also all the negatives, like difficult to park, and necessarily can't go as fast around corners, and you feel the body flex a bit, and it's all these things. And I mean, South Africa, Bakkie sort of is getting a status cult vibe, sort of. You drive a Range, or you have the newest Hilux, that's a luxury thing. Yeah,
you got to respect how well Raptor does as well.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, the Ranger is now suddenly expanding to. There's a Thunder now, and
so they're trying to. It's a bit like the old City Golf, so it's run out for the all new one, so that you can expect loads of special editions, and all it'll be is a different roll hoop or
some different sticker, differently placed. Yeah.
I like Raptor actually.
Yeah,
I didn't like it to start with.
The idea of it.
And it's only got the 2-liter engine in it and stuff, but actually to drive, it's very cool.
Yeah. And the suspension is probably noticeable.
Suspension is next level. It probably rides better than any other Bakkie on the road.
Even on the road?
Yeah, really. It's really good.
So it doesn't float around necessarily?
No, it's a really well-sorted suspension.
That's cool.
Yeah. After driving the V6 Amarok, I think they could do with putting a bigger engine in it, even though that engine is actually fine for every day.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like a V6.
Yeah. No, definitely. Ian, I want to thank you for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
It was a good conversation. Yeah. Hopefully you weren't too bored by my lack of knowledge or experience.
No, not at all.
But it was cool for me just, picking your brain, trying to see how the experiences were, how it is being a journalist.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening. Thank you for joining in. Who's up next episode? I have no idea. We'll have to see. But thanks for tuning in. I usually say at the end of the episode, rather love cars because it's better than drugs. So, have a good one.